All right, if you want to find your seat. Our lights seem like they're warming up. It's a little dark in here, right? They're not wanting to respond at the current moment, but they'll get there at some point. Well, I want to get right into what we're talking about today because if I've learned anything about the number of pages that I have in my notes, it's possible that I might go slightly over today. But if you can give me the grace today, because this is the end of Ecclesiastes, we're wrapping everything up, right? So there's a lot to wrap up. You guys want to maybe jump on there? I didn't get Prezi open, so maybe. Okay, you're getting it. Perfect. So we started this study in Ecclesiastes with really talking about the fact that Solomon, this guy who's gotten this unique wisdom, he was the wisest man in his time. There was no one like him prior to him, no one like him after him. He had this unique wisdom, and he spends his time in Ecclesiastes sharing that wisdom with us. And really the thrust of what he's talking about is really answering a lot of the deepest questions of life, like what's the meaning of life? What's the purpose of life? How do I find significance in this life? And as we've seen so far, a lot of his wisdom is in the form of negative wisdom. Like, this is not where you find meaning. This is not where you find purpose. This is not where you can find fulfillment. And I started with this poll that I'll show you here in a second when it comes up, but I think you guys remember it, where they asked a simple question, which was they polled Americans, I think it was like 1,000 Americans, and asked the question, where do you find meaning in your life, right? And they had a long list of things. Top of that list was raising a family. Now, really all of the things that are in that poll, or most of them, Paul kind of takes on directly and says, and really we can turn that around and say, okay, if they say, I find meaning in family, the question is, can ultimate meaning be found in family? And Solomon says, no. Ecclesiastes 6:3 and 6 says, if a man fathers 100 children and lives many, many years, massive family, right? However many they be, but his soul is not satisfied with the good things, he does not even have a proper burial, then I say, better the miscarriage than he. That family will never ultimately satisfy, and actually Solomon says it's so unsatisfactory, it's so lacking meaning, that even if a man lives 2,000 years, or 1,000 years twice, which is 2,000 years, and does not enjoy these things, it's better that he was never born to begin with. Family cannot bring ultimate meaning. The second one on the list is career. Can we find meaning in a career, ultimate meaning in a career? Solomon clearly answers that. Ecclesiastes 1:3, he says, what advantage does man have in all of his work, which he does under the sun? He says, no matter what your hand is put to, life becomes a series of vain repetitions. Do you guys remember that passage? I won't read the whole thing, but life just becomes a series of these repetitions. Any sort of job you have has kind of an ebb and flow. You start a project, you end a project, everything in between is pretty much similar. You get into these repetitions where you wake up in the morning, you drive to work, you do your work, you drive home, you go to bed, you get back up. It's all about this vain repetition stuff. And he says this. He says, all things are wearisome. Man is not able to tell it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor is the ear filled with hearing. That which has been is that which will be, and that which has been done is that which will be done. His point in all of that convoluted talking is that people work all their lives, they die, the next generation comes in, works the same job, they die, the next generation comes in, works, and they die. There's never, ever any true meaning under the sun in this life that can be found from a career. No human is ever really fully satisfied by work. They think the next project, they think the next promotion, they think the next change in the job will bring that ultimate significance, and it never truly does. Third thing on the list, can money bring me things in life that will bring me significance and contentment? How are we doing, guys? Do I need to come back there, or are you guys good?
Yeah, you're going to have to come back.
Yeah? Ed, you got it there? Or? No, okay. All right, let me leave you with a topic. The topic is gorillas. Go.
No matter what I do,
You're fine. Just scoot out
can't get
for
of
me.
it.
Yeah.
We clicked play, it wouldn't play.
You're fine. It's my fault. I forgot to do this morning.
You know,
I was distracted.
it's going to be persnickety, and it is going to work for him now, right? Wait a minute, you click the edit? I pushed play, didn't play.
I don't always do this, but oh, am I on? I'm on. All right. Let me just be clear. Yes, thank you. That was 100% my fault, what just went down right there. I forgot to load that up this morning. All right, so we have talked about this poll, right? Family, career, we're on to money. Can money bring us ultimate satisfaction and ultimate happiness? Solomon says no. Solomon says no, and he says that, and then he says this. Here we go. There was a certain man without a dependent, having neither a son nor a brother, yet there was no end to all his labor. Indeed, his eyes were not satisfied with riches, and he never asked, "For whom am I laboring and depriving myself of pleasure?" This too is vanity and a grievous task. He's saying money will never bring satisfaction. It will only bring you a bunch of hard work to get the money that you need and leave you empty. That's pretty exciting, right? That's what we all want to do. We want hard work and to be left empty, right? He who loves money will not be satisfied with money, nor he who loves abundance with its income. This too is vanity, useless, meaningless. When good things increase, those who consume them increase. So what is the advantage to their owners except to look on? Those who put their hope in finances, those who put their hope in money to bring them the things that they need, will ultimately end up unsatisfied. Because the more we make, the more we do what? Spend. And so you will never have enough. We will never have enough. That is not the place to find significance. Can a friendship fulfill me? Well, actually, Solomon would say this: two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. For if either of them falls, the one will lift up his companion. But woe to the one who falls and there is not another to lift him up. Furthermore, if two lie down together, they keep warm, but how can one be warm alone? And if one can overpower him who is alone, two can resist him. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly torn apart. So he's saying there's actually practical benefit of having friends. Friends are good. There's a practical benefit. Will they keep you from the unpredictability of life? No. Will they keep you away from the rivalry that exists between people? No, it might even create rivalry. Will it keep you away from the fact that humans have a tendency to do bad things? No, it will not. And that's the rest of his chapter. He goes on and talks about that. That is not the place to find ultimate meaning and significance. How about activities, hobbies, doing things, doing fun stuff? I was just talking to Brian. They're headed back down to Disneyland. What is this, like the 32nd time this year or something like that? Something really close to that. They have passes. They go all the time. So can activities in life, things that we do that are super fun, like going to Disneyland, can that bring us ultimate satisfaction? Solomon in chapter 2 says, I said to myself, come now, I will test you with pleasure, so enjoy yourself. And behold, it too was all futility. Remember, he goes through this thing and he's like, I have a ton of money. I have everything you could ever want, and I've gotten servants. I'm having as much sex as possible. Like anything in my life I want, I get. And guess what? I'm unsatisfied. So this lie that's told to us by the enemy that maybe if we just have that one more thing, that it's going to be the thing that we need to be content. The answer is no. Verse 10, all that my eyes desired, I did not refuse them. I did not withhold my heart from any pleasure. For my heart was pleased because of all my labor, and my reward and was my reward for all my labor. Thus I considered all my activities which my hands had done, and the labor which I had exerted, and behold, all was vanity, useless, meaningless, and striving after the wind. There's no profit under the sun. The striving after the wind is like trying to catch a breeze. If you go out today and try to, it's been breezy around here, right? You want to go try to catch one of those breezes? Anybody up for that? How's that going to work out for you? You're not going to catch it. It's going to be gone, right? And that's how life is. Pleasurable experiences, fun things will not ultimately fulfill us. Well, how about health? Can living a healthy lifestyle make me a whole person? Most people that pursue a healthy lifestyle for two reasons. They want a good life now, and they want to live longer lives. Let's see what Solomon has to say about that. Ecclesiastes 9, I again saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, and the battle is not to the warriors, and neither is bread to the wise, nor wealth to the discerning, or favor to men of ability, for time and chance overtake them all. Moreover, man does not know his time. Like a fish caught in a treacherous net, and birds trapped in a snare, so the sons of men are ensnared at an evil time when it suddenly falls on them. He's saying two things about this idea of pursuing a healthy lifestyle. Life is full of chance. Just because you pursue a healthy lifestyle doesn't mean you will be in good health. Did you guys track that? Just because you pursue a healthy lifestyle does not mean good health will come. It's all kind of, life is kind of full of chance. Do people fall prey who pursue healthy lifestyles fall prey to illnesses and to difficult health struggles? 100%, right? I mean, you see those things all the time, right? Can we control when death comes for us? No. No matter how much health food you eat, you cannot control when death comes for you. It will come quickly, and you will be surprised, and that will be it. Might come this afternoon, right? Ecclesiastes 9:18 says, wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much good. One fool can end your life, right? We see that with these mass shootings that are happening right now, right? We saw that when I told the story about the drag racers, right? That were drag racing on the freeway in a 24-car pileup, right? No matter what you do, maybe pursuing a healthy lifestyle makes you feel in control. You're not in control. It's foolishness to think that we are. How about building a good home, carving out a life for myself, having a nice piece of property, a nice house, something to call my own? Maybe that's going to do it. Solomon says, I enlarged my works. I built houses for myself. I planted vineyards for myself. I made gardens and parks for myself. I planted in them all kinds of fruit trees. I made ponds of water for myself, with which to irrigate a forest of growing trees. Doesn't that sound beautiful? Like, I want a piece of property like that, right? And look what he says. Look how he sums up his experience. Thus I considered all my activities which my hands had done and the labor which I had exerted, and behold, all was vanity and striving after the wind, and there was no profit under the sun. It did not fulfill him. It was not enough. And lest you think, oh, it's just him. Solomon was just kind of an unsatisfied man. No, Solomon represented the truth about life. That's what he's representing here. And he's trying to warn us and go, don't pursue these avenues of meaning and purpose. You will not find meaning and purpose here. Well, how about learning, education? What if I become a super smart person? Ecclesiastes 1:17, and I set my mind to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I realize that this also is striving after the wind. This is the smartest guy who ever lived. And he's like, I pursued education, and I knew pretty much everything. And guess what? Also trying to catch the wind. That was not satisfying. 2:14, the wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. And yet I know one fate befalls them both. Do both smart people and dumb people die? Yep. All the time. All the time. And are quickly forgotten. Both. Struggles. This is an interesting one. I don't think this particular one would have shown up on a poll from like 20 years ago. The idea that me having struggles in my life, me being a victim in life, actually brings me significance and meaning. This is a crazy idea, but we live in a world that believes this, right? Solomon says this, then I looked again at all the acts of oppression which were being done under the sun, and behold, I saw the tears of the oppressed, and that they had no one to comfort them. And on the side of their oppressors was power, but they had no one to comfort them. So I congratulated the dead who are already dead more than the living who are still living. He's like, better to be dead, because honestly, if you're an oppressed person, if you're a victim, or you're a perpetrator of causing victimhood, right? Both people are utterly miserable, and there's no value there. Don't pursue that kind of life. Don't take that on as going to give you some sort of a meaning to be a marginalized person in our world. Do people in our culture believe that today? That if I take on this victimhood, if I take on this marginalization, that somehow that'll give me something that I need, it will not give ultimate meaning. Well, how about doing good? Right? We should do good in the world. Can this bring me meaning? Making a difference in the world. Ecclesiastes 7:15. I've seen everything during my lifetime of futility. There was a righteous man, a good man, someone who does good things, who perishes in his righteousness, and there is a wicked man who prolongs his life in wickedness. Do not be excessively righteous, and do not be overly wise. Why should you ruin yourself? It is not going to extend your life or give you some sort of a better life to be a righteous person or as opposed to a bad person. There are bad people who are very, very rich and live very, very luxurious lives. And there are some extremely good people who have nothing and no good things in their life. That will not guarantee you anything. Verse 20. Says, indeed, there's not a righteous man on the earth who continually does good and never sins. There aren't even any good people that exist. So you might want to pat yourself on the back and say, yeah, I'm really good. But all you're doing is comparing yourself to someone else, and that's vanity, right? How about my community? Belonging to a community. Belonging to a church, belonging to a Rotary Club, belonging to some place where I have friendships and people who know me and understand me. Too many verses on this to go over, but let me tell you what Solomon says. We've heard these things. Communities have people, and can people be foolish? Yes. So communities are full of foolish people. Communities have leadership. Can leadership be selfish and ineffective? Yes, we looked at that, 2 weeks ago? Communities have gossip and backbiting, and it usually comes out, and it usually leads to drama because nothing ever stays secret, right? Communities are not the place to find ultimate fulfillment. How about retirement? Retirees out there, feeling fulfilled these days? Getting everything that you need from your retirement? I'm telling you, all of the people who said retirement here aren't retired yet. They're like, I'm looking forward to retirement. My life stinks now, but it's going to be great then, right? Here's Solomon. In the day of prosperity, be happy, but in the day of adversity, consider. God has made the one as well as the other so that man will not discover anything that will be after him. You have no idea what's coming in your retirement. It might be super good. It might be super terrible. It might be a mix of both. Probably will be. But is it going to ultimately fulfill you? No, it will not. And ask any retired person. How about security? Does it sound nice to have security in life? Financial security, physical security? Ecclesiastes 5:13. There's a grievous evil which I have seen under the sun, riches being hoarded by their owner to his hurt. Why would someone hoard riches? To be secure in life, right? To know that you have what you need. When those riches were lost through a bad investment and he fathered a son, then there was nothing to support him. Your best attempts at finding security, my best attempts at finding security, choosing the right investments, but then the stock market crashes, right? Ask the people who got caught up in the internet bubble of 2000, right? Or 2008 when the recession happened. All those people who thought they had security in these mutual funds and things, did they have security? No, they lost it all. It's not security, it's an illusion. Makes us feel better. Makes us feel like we have some sort of illusion or some sort of security. If I move to the right community, right, with the right neighbors, then I'll have security. Where do the robbers go? Right? The nicest neighborhoods. Nobody's going to the junky neighborhood to steal stuff, right? It's an illusion. And we get reminded of that every so often when there's a fire that burns down a whole town, right? Or there's a bombing that happens at a marathon, right? We suddenly go, or there's a school shooting. We suddenly go, oh man, I thought this was the secure place. I thought we had some level of security. Let's get rid of all the guns and then we'll have security. Security is not the place. Security can't be found here. Can't be found in this world. Can't be found under the sun. My favorite one on the whole list is my pet. Well, Solomon actually has something to say about that too. He says, for the fate of the sons of men and the fate of beasts are the same. As one dies, so does the other. Indeed, they all have the same breath, and there is no advantage for man over beast, for all is meaningless, vanity. All go to the same place, all come from the dust, all return to the dust, and your dog probably will not live as long as you live, and you'll have to return that dog to the dust, right? This is not the place. These are not the places to find meaning. These are the places that we ascribe meaning to them, that we say, hey, I'm gonna stamp a label of this is meaningful. Obviously, these people are doing that because they responded to the survey that way, right? But the point is, these are not the places to find meaning, and most people start to figure that out. And they hop from one thing on this list to another thing on this list. And then they figure out that that's a dead-end road. And so they hop from that thing to another thing. And ultimately, they will never find the meaning and significance that they're looking for. So, let's just go home depressed. Now, the good news is there is a place to find meaning, significance. There is a place that is not vain. There is some way that we can actually live a meaningful life. Solomon's going to cover that in chapter 12 here. This is what he says. Remember also your Creator in the days of your youth. He's transitioning here. Everything he's been talking about so far hinges right here at the beginning of chapter 12, and he totally changes direction. He says, remember your Creator in the days of your youth. Right away, from early in your life, from the start of your life, remember your Creator so that all of your life will be placed in the context of the God of the universe and the one who gave you life and breath. This is very, very different than the first 11 chapters, which have been focused completely on this earth, right? The value and significance and things that we can get in this earth and trying to suck the life out of this life and finding it empty. He's like, now you need to look up. Now you need to remember your Creator. Remember here, remember is a pretty good translation of this word. It's decent, but it actually means to name Him, to say His name. So that list I just showed you, what people are trying to slap, the label they're trying to slap on those things is meaningful. This is meaningful because where does meaning come from? Me. I make it meaningful. I give it that label. And Solomon says, yeah, that's a faulty label. Bad packaging, right? Now he says, instead, slap the label Creator, God, on everything. From your youth, from the beginning of your life. I don't know if you ever worked at a workplace that has one of those community fridges, and you'll open it up, and there'll be like a gallon of milk that has a sticky that says Carl on it, right? And you're like, oh, I'll drink that. I'm not Carl, but no, we're supposed to not drink that. Why? Because that's Carl's milk, right? Don't drink it. It's his, right? It's been labeled for a reason. When I was a kid, most of my growing up years, I shared a room with my brother. And we usually had a line down the middle, and it was like, you stay on your side, I stay on my side. If I ever touched anything on his side of the room, I would be beaten because he was like 3 years older than me and he was big, right? He touched stuff on my room, on my side of the room all the time, and I couldn't do anything about it. I was a little kid, so he's like, whatever. But like that was his stuff, right? I can't do anything with his stuff because that is labeled Ben, right? It's his stuff. He's saying, label your life, label your stuff from the Creator or the creators. It changes everything to do that. One of my favorite quotes, I think I have it here, is from a guy named Abraham Kuyper. He says, there's not a square inch in the whole of creation over which Christ, who is sovereign over all, does not cry, mine. And then he finishes it in a similar way. He says, there's not a square inch in the whole domain of our human existence over which Christ, who is sovereign over all, does not cry, mine. It's his. All of it is his. Meaning cannot be found just in this life. It has to be found beyond this life. And once it's found beyond this life, it puts everything in our life in perspective because it's the Creator's. Context really, really matters. We've got to place everything in our life in the right context. Got an example here, I think. Yes, I do. You put a NASCAR on a dirt road in the middle of nowhere, that's something. You put a NASCAR at the finish line at the checkered flag at Daytona, does that add significance to that NASCAR? Yes, it does. It's totally different. It's not even comparable. No NASCAR driver wants to be on that dirt road when they can be at the checkered flag at Daytona, right? Completely different. Shooting a jump shot at the local park. If you make it, is it like, yeah? You're like, good, right? 3 seconds left, down by 1 in the 1989 NBA playoffs. The losing team goes home, and you do this.
Sellers has Jordan. Jordan with 2 seconds to go. Puts it up and scores at the buzzer. Michael Jordan has won it.
Right? He probably hit that jump shot a million times in his life, right? He hits it there in that context, and now it's called, anybody know what that's called? The shot. You ask an NBA fan, hey, do you remember the shot? Oh yeah, Jordan, Game 5, right? Cheering, everybody rushes on the court. Why? Because he shot a jump shot that he shot a million other times, but you put it in that context, changes everything. Context matters. So Solomon says, remember your Creator in the days of your youth. And then he goes on kind of a little bit of a rant here. I'm just going to say what's here. Might be slightly offensive to some in the room who are getting older in their years, but we're just going to read what he has here, right? This is what he says. He says, remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days and years draw near, when you will say, I have no delight in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars are darkened and the clouds return after the rain. He's going to describe what it's like to get old, okay? Some of you might go, yeah, I kind of relate to this. He's describing the sunsetting years of someone's life, and that is definitely difficult for most people. For us, modern medicine can kind of mitigate some of these things, but in Solomon's time, there was no mitigation, right? You just had to live with these things. And so he's picturing here light being the good things in life, right? We've talked about that from previous contexts. And that the clouds are rolling in and covering that sun up in your life. Then he compares in the next section, he compares being old to a household. He says, in the day that the watchmen of the house tremble, and the mighty men stoop, and the grinding ones stand idle because they are few, and those who look through windows grow dim, and the doors on the street are shut as the sound of the grinding mill is low, and one will arise at the sound of the bird, and all the daughters of song will sing softly. This is super figurative, so I'm not going to go through each of the figures. Well, I am, but I'm going to go through them quickly. Watchman trembling is getting weak and shaky hands. Mighty men stooping is the weakening of your body, and you stooping over, right? Grinders being few is losing more and more teeth. Windows going dim is your eyesight getting... Anybody relate to this at all? A weakening eyesight? I'm starting to have to do that whole thing where I'm like, oh, weakening eyesight, right? The doors shut, which is your lips curling in because you're losing so many teeth. A rise at the bird sound, that's difficulty sleeping, so you get up really early every day. Singing of soft songs is you losing your hearing. Relate to any of these at all? He doesn't just stop there. He says, furthermore, there's more. Furthermore, men are afraid of a high place and of the terrors on the road. The almond tree blossoms and the grasshopper drags himself along, and the caperberry is ineffective, for man goes to his eternal home while mourners go about in the street. He's talking about the weakening of age, bringing additional fears, because as you lose a little bit of physical strength, then you could be fearful if you're traveling, especially in his time, that robbers could overtake you. Almond trees blossoming white. This is an almond tree. The illustration is this. What happens up top? You go white, right? Grasshoppers dragging is your walking being slowed. Ineffective caperberry is kind of the old version of Viagra not working anymore. Okay, let's keep going. Then we go to our eternal home at the end. His whole point with all that is, don't wait until the end to put your life in context. That's what he's trying to say. He says, remember him. Repeats this. Remember him before the silver cord is broken and the golden bowl is crushed, the pitcher by the well is shattered, and the wheel at the cistern is crushed. These are both illustrations of death. Silver cord breaking is a lampstand that breaks, the light goes out. The pitcher being broken out of the well, you can no longer draw water, which is life-giving, right? Before death, before the end of life, early in your life, as soon as you can, put your life in the proper context. That's what he's trying to say. Because the dust will return to the earth as it was, and the spirit will return to God who gave it. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher, all is vanity. Don't make your life meaningless by waiting too long to put it in context. That's what he's trying to say. The point on your handout, if you want to fill it out, is this. True meaning only comes when we see all of life as the Creator's. Don't wait to place life in its proper context. True meaning only comes when we see all of life as the Creator's. Don't wait to place life in its proper context. He goes on. In addition to being a wise man, the preacher, which is what he calls himself, it's not really preacher, it's more like keynote speaker. Okay, it's not in the context of church or anything like that. It's just someone you come to listen to, right? He's like, I'm the one you need to listen to. God's given me unique wisdom. Here's the deal. In addition to being a wise man, the preacher also taught the people knowledge. He pondered, searching out and arranging many proverbs. The preacher sought to find delightful words and to write the words of truth correctly. He's really talking about what he's done so far in Ecclesiastes. Solomon could have learned all of this wisdom. He spent his life seeking out wisdom, going to different countries and seeing different situations and different people and interviewing people and trying to understand how life works. And he could have kept that all to himself because he would have learned what he needed to know. But instead, he chose to teach others this knowledge. He pondered and searched out and arranged these proverbs. He wanted others to know about this truth, and so he carefully and diligently not only gave serious thought to what he was doing, but also he tested all of his hypotheses and found them to be true. And then he ordered them, he arranged them in Proverbs. He arranged this book of Ecclesiastes so that we could have this wisdom. He's trying to communicate this wisdom to us. He took time, lots of effort, to carefully and diligently put together what he put together. And he wrote for two reasons. He said to find delightful words and to write words of truth correctly. He wanted to write about the truth of life. There's so many things in life that are telling us things that are untrue. We're constantly bombarded with these things that were on that list that are like, this will make you happy. Just watch the next advertisement, and that thing will show you, hey, if you just have this product, if you just have this suntan lotion, life is going to be great, and all the girls are going to surround you, right? Like that's what advertising is. I remember, I think it was 7th grade. I think it was my English class, or maybe I had a speech class or something. Anyway, we went over advertising, and I was like, I came out of that unit going, advertisers are basically just trying to find ways to lie to us all the time, right? And they really are. Watch advertisements. They're all trying to say, this is the one thing you're missing in your life, and if you just have it, you're going to have all that you need in life, right? And even they know that that's not true. So Solomon said, I don't want that junk. I want to ignore all of those things, and I want to bring you just these sober truths about life, things that are really true. So we don't waste our lives trying to pursue significance and happiness and all of the things that we need outside of these truths. And he said the other reason was to produce delight, which is funny because so much of it is negative, right? So far we've been like, man, so much of it is just this negative wisdom. But imagine someone who reads Solomon's words, someone who's been listening as we've been going through this, and they're reading his words. They stop pursuing an empty life and start pursuing life in the proper context with their Creator, and they find meaning and purpose and significance. Isn't that a good? Isn't that delightful? And if it takes all this negative wisdom to get us there, I say bring it on. I gave this illustration a while back where at our high school they drugged this mangled car in front of our high school, right? And it had, Mothers Against Drunk Driving on it, right? And the reason for that is they wanted us to walk by that every day and think, hey, I better not drink and drive, right? And you might look at that and go, man, that mangled car is so depressing, like someone died in that, right? Or you could walk by it and say, hey, you know what? What about the kids' lives that were saved because they saw the mangled car, right? That's the positive thing. For us, imagine being able to live life the way God, our Creator, intended us to live life, in the context of everything being slapped with His label, because it's all His, including our lives and every aspect of our lives. He goes on, he says, the words of wise men are like goads And masters of these collections are like well-driven nails. They are given by one shepherd. A goad is a cattle prod. You guys ever seen a cattle prod? Here's a modern-day cattle prod, right? You give that cattle a little zap in the butt, and what does it do? Hello, it gets them to move, right? Gets them going in the right direction. They need to go in that direction, and you zap them a little bit. Now, they didn't have these in Solomon's time, but they had these sticks that had a sharp end on it, and they go boom, and poke them in the butt and get them going the right way, right? He's saying wise men are like goads, are like cattle prods. Painful, right? But they help get us going in the right direction. I think this is a great description of Ecclesiastes. Painful truths, but hopefully they'll get us going in the right direction. And if we can master this wisdom, master these collections, then we'll be like well-driven nails. You ever tried to drive a nail in and it kind of starts to bend over and you're like, oh, you have to yank that one out and put another one in. And I remember I've gotten better at nail hammering since my youth, but I remember in my youth, I would just do like, I'd have to put in like 6 nails before I got one actually driven correctly, because they were also mangled all the time. I couldn't just get them. I didn't have the technique to get them in there, right? And he's saying it's like the opposite of a well-driven nail is a nail that's not well-driven, but you leave it, right? And so you have a whole house constructed of nails that are bent. Is that a good house? Are you going to live in that house that doesn't have any well-driven nails? No. Instead, our lives are like houses that were built with well-driven nails, if we live by this wisdom. Strong, sturdy, can endure the trials and the difficulties of life. Verse 12, but beyond this, my son, be warned. The writing of many books is endless, and excessive devotion to books is wearying to the body. He's saying it was really hard to write all this. Like, it took him a lot of time to do it, and it was really difficult. So that's hard. And if you dedicate your life to reading books, be careful. Be careful what you read, because it can weary you. It can wipe you out, which will lead you in the wrong direction. Now, that's very true in our world today. There are, I looked it up, there's billions of books out there, but in the U.S., there's more than 300,000 books published every single year. 300,000 books. I can't even imagine what that looks like, right? Every year, by publishing houses, 300,000 books. That's not even to mention all the self-published books that are out there. That number gets over a million every year. So good luck even trying to read the best books that are out there, right? You got to filter through a bunch of junk to find the best books that are out there. But even the best books, we got to be careful with what's in there. Because wisdom doesn't just come, or books aren't just written by wise people. There are plenty of books written by fools. And probably the longer the book is, the more foolish it is, right? Because fools just keep talking, right? We learned that earlier. I love this verse. I try to remember it a lot. 1 Corinthians 1:25 says, the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. I think so many times we think maybe we're going to get what we need out of that next bestseller that just came out. But realize that any book written by, any book published this year that is not the Bible, right, is so weak compared to the weakest words of God, right? Spend time on the important thing. Make that the main thing. Read the Bible. It's the bottom line, right? All right. Because the constant flow of ideas distributed in countless different ways, because of the constant flow of ideas distributed in countless different ways, it is better to discern what is wise and based on truth before choosing what you will consume. It is best to discern what is wise and based on truth before choosing what you will consume. All right, he finishes the whole book with this very well stated statement here. That honestly, I could teach a whole Sunday on this one verse, but I'm not going to. This is the conclusion. When all has been heard, everything from Ecclesiastes, this is now the summing up point of all of it. This is the whole reason why he organized the book the way he organized, gave these proverbs to us the way he gave them to us, is he wanted to accomplish this in us, for us to be convinced that this is the way to live life. And he gives 3 principles. He says, fear God and keep his commandments, because this applies to every person. For God will bring every act of judgment, everything which is hidden, whether it is good or evil. I skipped one in the poll. I don't know if you noticed. But it was faith and spirituality. Because I want to leave this one. Ask the question, can faith and spirituality bring us meaning and purpose and significance in life? And I would say maybe. It's not yes. If when we're talking about faith and spirituality, we're talking about these 3 concepts that he gives here, I would say 100% this can bring meaning and significance and is the only thing that will bring that. These are the 3 things he says. Oh, shoot. I got to go back. Sorry. My bad. There we go. He says, fear God. Fear God. And this is not fear of a God. This is fear of the God, right? Fear is respect. It's really establishing the right relationship with God. Having the right relationship. You see this concept all over the Old Testament, to fear God. And it does involve, to a certain extent, being intimidated by God, right? He is massively powerful, right? We should be in some ways intimidated by God. When we have pictures of people actually seeing God, they are wrecked because they are so overwhelmed with who he is, right? We should have a sense of that. But really, it's more than that in the Old Testament context. It's putting God in his proper place and us in our proper place so that we have a right relationship with him. True significance is only found in having a right relationship with God. That's one. So any sort of faith and spirituality that does not get you in a right relationship with God, not going to find significance there. Not going to find meaning and purpose. You can put that label on it, but that's not where it's going to come from. And by the way, I'm not just talking about other religions. I'm talking about the Christian religion. If this is not about making God everything in your life, making the Creator complete ruler of your life and stamping his mark on everything that you are, then that's not where you're going to find meaning and significance. Second thing he says is, keep his commandments. Now, I don't know about you, but when I read that, I usually am thinking of some sort of law code or something that I need to check off the list and do, I got to make sure I do this so I don't get in trouble, I don't want to go to jail or whatever. That's not really what he's getting at here. He's basically saying, do whatever God tells you to do. If God asks you to do something, do it. It's living life not on your terms, but on his terms. Maintaining a relationship with God in which he's pleased with your life. Your behavior is pleasing to him. It's in line with his character. That's the second thing. The third thing is, God will bring every act to judgment. This instantly takes our eyes from this moment to a future moment, a future reality, right? Most of us are pretty consumed with our daily lives here and just kind of surviving day to day, when really our eyes should be on eternity. This whole life should be placed in the context of eternal things, not temporal things, not the things of this life and this time. Knowing that eventually we will be held to his standards, not our standards again. And living in light of the fact that this judgment is coming, that we will face him at the end of this life and live that way. That's where true meaning and purpose can be found. Living for eternity, not for the temporal. So, by the way, these three concepts don't directly align, but they pretty closely align with some New Testament threesomes. Faith, love, hope. I know faith, hope, love, right? But faith, love, hope, to put them in order. They align pretty well. Justification, sanctification, glorification. They align pretty well. This is how God has always desired his people to respond to him. So if these are the things that bind us to true meaning in life, if we want to live life in a meaningful way, we can go back to these concepts and say, is there meaning in family? Well, when family is about discipling the next generation in the Lord, sure, there's meaning in family. 100% there is. Is there purpose in my career? Well, when we work as if we're working for the Lord, yeah, it brings purpose. Is there significance to be found in money? When every cent is recognized as his and not our own, yes, it gives great significance to that money. Is there meaning in faith? When that faith is placed in the one true God, yes. Is there purpose to be found in friendships? When it's about ironing, sharpening iron, 100% gives purpose. Is there significance in fun activities? Is there significance in going to Disneyland? 100% there is, if we're giving thanks to him in everything, right? Is there meaning in living a healthy lifestyle? I think when it's held loosely and it's put in its proper place and it's a recognition that I don't control my life, but you control my life, sure. Is there purpose in sorry, I missed that one. Is there purpose in caring for your home? Sure, if we recognize that it's his home, not our home, and we use it that way. Sure. Is there significance in education? When it's placed in the context of trying to understand his truth and his world? Sure. Is there meaning in struggle? When it's producing an eternal weight of glory, far beyond all comparison, definitely there's meaning in struggle. Is there purpose in doing good? When it's not about being honored by men? Sure. When it's about being honored by our Father? Definitely there's meaning in doing good. There's purpose. Is there significance to be found in community? I think we find that significance all the time in here. When it's about unity of the body, unity of the Spirit that dwells among us, 100%. It brings eternal significance. Can retirement be meaningful? When it's not about working to a point where you get to do whatever you want, but freeing your schedule to do whatever he wants, sure. Retirement can have great meaning. Is security attainable? Eternal security is attainable, right? Can you find purpose in caring for your pets? No. All right. Point on your handout. 3 keys to life in this world. Put God in his proper place in your life. Do whatever God asks of you, and live this life in light of the next. If we can live in this wise way, guaranteed to transform our lives. Give us all the meaning and purpose that we ever have desired. I will add one quick thing here. As amazing as Solomon's wisdom is, and I don't know about you, but I really, really appreciate Solomon. Jesus says in Matthew 12:42, behold, something greater than Solomon is here. Right? As great as Solomon's wisdom was, the wisdom of Christ far transcends it. It's like a starting place for the rest. All right, point on your handout, or not point on your handout, bottom of your handout. Let's just read it together. Life outside of its proper context is ultimately empty and meaningless. While most people sense this, we are typically too distracted by our own efforts to ascribe meaning to things, from our family to the family dog, to really take stock of how truly meaningless our lives are. Living life independently of the one who created it takes it away from the only thing that could ever make it truly meaningful. On the other hand, when we live all of life in light of the one who gave us life, living as he meant us to live, while looking forward to an eternity with him, everything is suddenly infused with real meaning, fixed purpose, and immeasurable significance. Let me pray for us. Lord, I'm just so thankful that you have given us this time in Ecclesiastes. I'm even more thankful now as we've gotten through it, and so much of it has just been so good. Just thank you for this wise man that you infused with all this wisdom and his dedication to laying out these truths for us and this wisdom for us. May we be those who are changed by this wisdom, that all of our life we would place into the proper context, and that we would slap your label on every single thing in our life. Every single part of our life would be for your glory, would be in line with who you are and how you've made us, and that ultimately you would be glorified because of what you've done in our lives. And we know really the Spirit is the one who can do that in us, so empower us to be this, to live this wise way. Pray this all in your name. Amen. I've just been talking a bunch, but I'm going to add just a little